The ballroom lights felt too bright. 200 faces, 200 smiles, all waiting for the toast that would seal tomorrow's wedding. My hands were steady around a champagne glass, but my chest wasn't. Victoria stood up first. Victoria always stood up first. Before we celebrate tomorrow, Victoria said, tapping a spoon against crystal, I want to share something funny about Ethan. The room laughed before Victoria even finished the sentence. That should have warned me. Ethan grew up with nothing. Victoria continued, smiling at the crowd like this was a gift she was giving them. No family name, no connections. My father gave Ethan his first real contract out of pity. Didn't you, Daddy? Richard Hale raised his glass. Guilty as charged. Laughter rolled through the tables again. My face burned, but I stayed still. Grace Bennett, 3 tables back, wasn't laughing. Neither was Daniel. Ethan used to deliver packages himself, Victoria said, before he could afford employees. Can you imagine? My fiancée, driving a rusted van through the city at midnight. Camille Hale pressed a napkin to her lips, hiding a smile that wasn't hidden at all. I only tell you this, Victoria said, turning toward me now, voice sweet as poison, because I love a good rags-to-riches story. Ethan is proof that even a charity case can end up marrying into the Hale family. The room erupted. Not cruel laughter exactly. Worse. Amused laughter. The kind that treats humiliation like entertainment. My throat tightened. Every memory of the last 3 years pressed down on my chest at once. Every dinner where Camille Hale corrected my table manners. Every meeting where Richard Hale introduced me as Victoria's project. Every night I told myself none of it mattered because Victoria loved me. Except Victoria wasn't looking at me like someone who loved me. Victoria was looking at me like someone finishing a performance. A charity case, Victoria repeated, raising her glass toward the crowd. But my charity case. The applause started. Glasses clinked. My own hand didn't move. I thought about walking out. I thought about saying nothing, swallowing it the way I'd swallowed everything else for 3 years. Then I thought about last week, the folder Grace had given me, the numbers that didn't add up, the name that kept appearing next to Victoria's on documents that had nothing to do with our wedding. I stood up. The room quieted, expecting a joke, a toast, something to match the mood Victoria had set. Victoria, I said, my voice calm in a way that surprised even me. Thank you for that story. Victoria smiled, waiting for the punchline that would make her look generous. I know about Marcus. 5 words. That's all it took. The color drained from Victoria's face so fast, I almost regretted it. Almost. The room, seconds ago full of laughter, went completely silent. Richard Hale's glass stopped halfway to his lips. Camille Hale's smile cracked at the edges. What did you say? Victoria asked, voice suddenly thin. You heard me, I said. I know about Marcus. Victoria's hand gripped the edge of the table. Ethan, this isn't the place. You made it the place, I said. 200 people just watched you call me a charity case. I figured they'd want to know what else has been going on behind closed doors. Ethan, Victoria's voice dropped, pleading now, all the sweetness gone. Don't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said. I said 5 words. What you do with them is up to you. Richard Hale set down his glass. What is he talking about, Victoria? Victoria didn't answer. Victoria couldn't answer. For the first time in 3 years, I watched Victoria search for words and find nothing. I picked up my jacket from the back of my chair. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Enjoy the rest of the dinner, I said to the room, to no one, to everyone. I think I've had enough charity for tonight. I walked toward the exit. Behind me, whispers spread through the tables like fire through dry grass. Camille Hale's voice rose, sharp and controlled, trying to smooth over what couldn't be smoothed. Richard Hale said something I didn't catch. Victoria said my name once, twice, but I didn't turn around. Outside, the night air hit my face like a slap I'd been waiting for. Daniel was already there, having slipped out before me, leaning against the valet stand with his hands in his pockets. You okay? Daniel asked. No, I said, but I will be. Daniel studied my face for a long moment. What was that? The 5 words. I looked back at the golden light spilling from the ballroom windows, at the shapes moving behind the glass, at the life I'd spent 3 years trying to fit into. That, I said, was just the beginning. Daniel drove. I couldn't have trusted my own hands on a wheel that night. Talk to me, Daniel said, eyes on the road. What's going on with Marcus Rain? Not yet, I said. I need to call Grace first. Ethan, Daniel's voice sharpened. You just torched your own wedding in front of 200 people. I think I'm owed an explanation. You're owed one, I said, but I want to say it once, and I want Grace on the phone when I do. She's the one who found it. Daniel gripped the wheel tighter. Found what? I didn't answer. I watched the city lights blur past the window instead, replaying Victoria's face when the color drained out of it. 3 years of feeling small in that family, and 5 words had done more than 3 years of silence ever could. You're shutting down, Daniel said. You do this. You go quiet right when I need you to talk. I'm not shutting down, I said. I'm thinking. Think out loud, then. I turned to him. Victoria stood up in front of everyone and called me a charity case. Do you know how long she's been building up to that moment? I know how long I've been wanting to say something, Daniel said. You wouldn't let me. Because I loved her, I said. Or I thought I did. Or I love the idea of finally belonging somewhere. And now I don't know what I feel. But I know what I found in that folder Grace gave me. And it's not about love at all. Daniel pulled in my driveway and killed the engine. Neither of us moved. 5 words, Daniel said quietly. I know about Marcus. You've been holding that in for how long? A week, I said, since Grace called me into her office. And you didn't tell me? I didn't want to believe it myself. Daniel exhaled hard. Frustration and worry tangled together. Whatever this is, Ethan, you don't owe the Hales anything anymore. Not after tonight. Walk away. Take whatever you've found to a lawyer, protect yourself, and be done with all of them. It's not that simple. Why not? Because Marcus Rain's name is all over documents connected to my company, I said. Whatever Victoria's done, I might already be standing in the middle of it. Daniel went quiet. That kind of quiet meant he understood. Inside, I dropped my jacket on the couch and pulled out my phone before I could talk myself out of it. Grace picked up on the second ring. Please tell me you didn't actually say it, Grace said instead of hello. I said it. A long breath on the other end. At the rehearsal dinner. In front of everyone. In front of everyone. Ethan. Grace's voice carried the particular exhaustion of a lawyer who just watched a client set fire to their own case. We talked about this. We agreed you'd wait until we had everything confirmed. She stood up and humiliated me, Grace. Called me a charity case in front of 200 people while her father laughed along. I wasn't going to sit there and take it. Grace was quiet for a moment. Okay, what exactly did you say? 5 words. I know about Marcus. Nothing else. That's it. That's it. But you should have seen her face. She knows I know something. She just doesn't know how much. Which is exactly the problem, Grace said. Now she has a reason to move fast. If there's anything left to hide, she'll hide it better or destroy it completely. Daniel, listening from the doorway, mouthed put it on speaker. I did. Grace, it's Daniel. Walk me through this. What did you actually find? Financial transfers, Grace said. Large ones, routed through accounts tied to Hale Enterprises, but using Ethan's company registration numbers as a cover layer. Someone made it look like Ethan's business process payments it never touched. Who's Marcus Rain? Daniel asked. Officially, a business consultant Richard Hale brought in 18 months ago, Grace said. Unofficially, from what I can piece together, someone a lot closer to Victoria than a business relationship should allow. I closed my eyes. So, it's not just an affair. It's not just an affair, Grace confirmed. If what I'm seeing is accurate, Victoria and Marcus have been moving money through your company's name without your knowledge. And if it ever gets investigated, your name is the one attached to the paperwork. Not theirs. Daniel's jaw tightened. So Ethan's not just the jilted fiancé. He's the fall guy. That's what I'm afraid of, Grace said. Which means tonight wasn't just about pride, Ethan. You need to protect yourself, and you need to do it quietly, before Victoria realizes how much danger she's actually in. I looked at Daniel. Daniel looked back at me. All the anger from the car now settled into something colder, sharper. Then let's start tonight, I said. Grace, Tell me everything you have. All of it. Are you sure? Grace asked. Once we start pulling this thread, there's no putting it back. I thought about Victoria's face in that ballroom, pale and frozen, for the first time in 3 years not in control of the room. I'm sure, I said. Let's pull it. I couldn't sleep that night, so I let myself go back to the beginning, back to before charity cases and folders full of proof. I met Victoria 3 years ago at a logistics conference I almost didn't attend. My company was 2 years old then, small, barely profitable, running on loans and long nights. Victoria walked up to my booth wearing a blazer that cost more than my monthly rent. You built this yourself? Victoria asked, looking at the display behind me. Every bit of it, I said. No investors, no family money. Just me and a lot of bad coffee. Victoria smiled, and it wasn't the smile from the rehearsal dinner. It was real, or it felt real. That's rare. Most people in this room inherited their way in. Is that a compliment or an insult? Both, Victoria said. Come find me after the panel. I want to hear how you did it. That should have been the whole story. A woman impressed by ambition, a man proud of what he'd built. But Victoria came from the Hale family, and the Hale family didn't just date people. They evaluated them. 3 months later, Richard Hale invited me to dinner for the first time. So you're the one who's caught my daughter's attention, Richard said, studying me over a glass of wine that cost more than my first month of rent. Tell me about your company. I told him everything. The 2 employees I started with, the used van, the year I didn't take a single day off. Richard nodded along, but I saw it even then, the way his eyes flicked to my shoes, my watch, the cut of my jacket. Ambitious, Richard said finally. I like ambitious men. They're useful. Useful. Not impressive. Not promising. Useful. I didn't catch the difference back then. I was too busy being grateful someone like Richard Hale was even having dinner with someone like me. Camille Hale made her feelings clearer, and much sooner. Victoria, I overheard her say once, thinking I was out of earshot, men like Ethan are temporary. They're useful for a season, and then you move on to someone who actually belongs in our world. Mother, Victoria said, Ethan isn't temporary. Everyone is temporary until they're not, Camille said. Enjoy him while it lasts, darling. Just don't get attached. I told myself Victoria didn't believe that. I told myself the way Victoria held my hand under the table at family dinners meant something real. I ignored the small cuts, Camille correcting which fork I used, Richard introducing me at parties as Victoria's find instead of by name, the slow expectation that I would fold myself smaller to fit into rooms that were never built for me. You don't have to change anything, Victoria told me once, early on, when I asked if I should take business lessons from one of Richard's associates. I like you exactly how you are. But that wasn't true either, not really. Because every year, I change a little more. I stopped mentioning my old neighborhood at parties. I bought a better watch. I let my company take on contract from Hale Enterprises even when the terms weren't fair because Richard implied it would help Victoria's family see me differently. It never did. Ethan brought in the Meridian contract, Richard said once, at a dinner full of his business partners. Good instincts for a man who started with nothing. For a man who started with nothing. Always that qualifier. Always a reminder of where I came from, dressed up as a compliment. Daniel saw it long before I did. They talk about you like you're a rescue dog. Daniel told me once, over beers I could barely afford back then. Grateful for scraps and expected to perform tricks. That's not fair, I said. Richard's given me real opportunities. Richard's given you contracts that make him look generous while he pays you less than market rate, Daniel said. Wake up, Ethan. They don't respect you. They tolerate you. I didn't want to hear it then. I wanted the fairy tale. The poor kid who built something from nothing, who won the heart of a woman everyone said was out of his league. I wanted the story where hard work and love were enough to erase the gap between where I came from and where Victoria lived. But stories aren't proof. And 3 years of small humiliations don't disappear just because you refuse to count them. Looking back now, I can see all of it clearly. Every dinner where I was the punchline before I ever became the target. Every contract that helped Richard's company more than mine. Every time Camille reminded Victoria, in that soft, patient voice, that I was temporary. I understand now why the rehearsal dinner didn't feel like a betrayal to Victoria. It felt like the truth Victoria had been taught since childhood, that people like me existed to be useful, and once we stopped being useful, we existed to be discarded. Victoria didn't destroy me at that dinner out of nowhere. Victoria had been rehearsing that moment for 3 years. I was just the last one in the room to realize it. Grace's office smelled like old coffee and printer ink. Stacks of paper covered her desk, each one flagged with colored tabs. "Sit down," Grace said. "This is going to take a while." "How bad is it?" "Worse than I told you on the phone." Grace slid a folder across the desk. "Start with page 1. I opened it. Transfer records, dozens of them, dates going back 14 months. My company's registration number sat at the top of each one like a stamp of approval. "I never authorized any of this," I said. "I know," Grace said. "That's what makes it dangerous instead of just embarrassing. Someone used your company as a pass-through account. Money comes in from Hale Enterprises' biggest clients, gets routed through a shell registered under your business name, and comes out the other side in an account controlled by Marcus Rain. How much money are we talking about?" Grace turned to the last page. "Just over $4 million, over 14 months. My stomach dropped. "4 million? That's what I've traced so far," Grace said. "There could be more. And Victoria's name is on this?" "Not directly," Grace said. "Victoria's smarter than that. But 3 of the shell accounts list an address that matches an apartment Victoria leases under a maiden family name. Camille's maiden name, actually, Reinhold. So Victoria set it up to look untouchable. Victoria set it up so that if anyone got caught, it would be you," Grace said. "Your company's name is the one attached to every transaction. Not Victoria's. Not Marcus's." I sat back, my head spinning. Why would she do this to me? I stopped myself. Saying it out loud felt stupid now. I thought we were building a life together. "Some people build lives," Grace said. "Some people build alibis." "How long have you known?" "Suspected for about 3 weeks," Grace said. "Confirmed since last Tuesday. I wanted more before I brought it to you. But then you went and torched the rehearsal dinner. So here we are." "I'm sorry," I said. "I know that complicates things." "It complicates things," Grace agreed. "But it's not the end of the world. Victoria panicking is actually useful if we're smart about it." "How is that useful?" "Panic people make mistakes," Grace said. "Careful people cover their tracks slowly. Panic people move fast and sloppy. If Victoria and Marcus think you know everything, they'll try to clean it up quickly. And quick cleanup leaves fingerprints." I flipped through more pages, my name sitting at the top of transaction after transaction I had no memory of authorizing. "Grace, if this comes out, does it destroy my company too?" Grace didn't answer right away, which told me everything. "It could," Grace admitted. "If regulators see your company's name on fraudulent transfers, they won't automatically know you weren't involved. You need to prove it. That takes time, lawyers, and money. So I have 2 options." "2 options," Grace confirmed. "Option 1, we go public with everything, hand this to investigators, and let the chips fall. Best case, you're cleared and Victoria and Marcus go down hard. Worst case, you get dragged through the same mud while it gets sorted out, and your company's reputation takes damage you might not recover from." "And option 2? "Option 2, we protect you first," Grace said. "Quietly separate your company from every account tied to these transfers. File the paperwork that proves you had no operational control over the shell entities. Build an airtight case that removes you from the picture completely. Once you're protected, then we decide what to do with everything else." "That sounds like walking away." "It's not walking away," Grace said. "It's making sure you're standing on solid ground before you throw the first punch. Right now, if this becomes public, you're standing in the blast radius with them." I stared at the folder. At $4 million moved through my name without my knowledge. At 14 months of Victoria smiling at me across dinner tables while building a case against me without even knowing it yet. "I built that company from nothing," I said quietly. 2 employees, a rusted van, 3 years of no days off. I'm not losing it because Victoria needed somewhere to hide her money. "Then we protect it first," Grace said. "That's the smart move, Ethan. Not revenge. Not exposure. Protection. And after that," Grace closed the folder, her expression steady. After that, we decide how much of this the world needs to see and how much damage Victoria and Marcus deserve to face. I thought about the rehearsal dinner, about Victoria's voice calling me a charity case in front of 200 people, about 3 years of small humiliations I'd swallowed because I thought I loved her. Protect the company first, I said. Then we make sure everyone knows exactly what Victoria did. Grace almost smiled. Now you're thinking like someone who's done being useful to the Hales. My phone buzzed for the 9th time that morning. Victoria's name lit up the screen again. I set the phone face down on Grace's desk and didn't touch it. You're not answering, Grace said, not looking up from her laptop. I'm not ready to answer, I said. Not until we're finished. Good instinct, Grace said. Silence unsettles people more than arguments do. Victoria doesn't know what you know. Every hour you stay quiet, that uncertainty grows. How's the filing coming? Almost done. Grace turned her screen toward me. This separates your company's operational structure from any shared accounts with Hale Enterprises. Effective retroactively to the date, we can prove you had no knowledge of the shell transfers. Once this is filed, if investigators come looking, the paperwork shows you cut ties the moment irregularities appeared. Is that legal? Backdating protection like that? It's not backdating, Grace said. It's documenting facts that were already true. You didn't know. We're just making that fact official and time-stamped before anyone else can claim otherwise. Daniel walked in without knocking, dropping a stack of folders on the desk. Bank confirms it. Every account your company shares with Hale Enterprises is being closed by end of day. New accounts are already open, clean, no ties to anything Richard Hale or Marcus Rain ever touched. That was fast, I said. I've been making calls since 6 a.m., Daniel said. Didn't sleep much. Didn't want to. Thank you, I said. Both of you. I don't know what I'd be doing right now without this. Probably still standing in that ballroom, Daniel said. Try to figure out how to apologize to Victoria for embarrassing her. I wasn't going to apologize. You might have, Daniel said. You've got a habit of forgiving people who don't deserve it. Grace's phone rang before I could argue. She answered, listened, then covered the receiver. It's Sophie Lane. She's ready for us. Who's Sophie Lane? Investigative journalist, Grace said. Used to work with me on a fraud case 2 years ago. She's sharp, careful, and she doesn't publish anything she can't prove 3 times over. If anyone can dig into Marcus Rain's history fast and clean, it's her. We met Sophie an hour later at a coffee shop 2 blocks from Grace's office, away from anywhere the Hale family might recognize us. Sophie looked younger than I expected, maybe 30, with sharp eyes that moved fast over the documents Grace slid across the table. Walk me through this, Sophie said, flipping pages without looking up. 14 months of transfers, Grace said, routed through shell accounts registered under Ethan's company, ending in accounts controlled by Marcus Rain. Real estate tied to Victoria Hale under her mother's maiden name. And Ethan didn't know any of this was happening, Sophie said, glancing at me. Not until a week ago, I said. Sophie studied me for a long moment. You understand what happens if I start digging into Marcus Rain. He'll notice. If he's smart, and it sounds like he is, he'll start covering tracks the moment he suspects someone's looking. We're aware, Grace said. That's why we need this done quickly and quietly. Sophie tapped the folder. Where did Marcus Rain come from? Before Richard Hale brought him in 18 months ago. That's part of what we're hoping you can find, Grace said. Public records show almost nothing. No previous company listed under his name that goes back more than 3 years. That's a red flag on its own, Sophie said. People don't appear out of nowhere unless they're hiding something or they change their name. Sophie closed the folder and looked at me directly. If I take this on, I'm not doing it as a favor. I'm doing it because if this checks out, it's the biggest fraud story to hit this city in a decade. I need full access to whatever else you have. You'll have it, I said. And when I publish, Sophie said, there's no controlling how it lands. Your name gets mentioned, whether you want it to or not. I'll be fair, I'll be accurate, but I won't protect you from the true. The headline broke on a Tuesday morning. Hale Enterprises faces fraud allegations as financial irregularities surface. Sophie Lane's name sat under the title. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since sunrise. Daniel burst through my door without knocking, tablet in hand. It's everywhere. Every business channel, every finance blog. They're saying Richard Hale's biggest clients are already pulling contracts. Already? I asked, taking the tablet from him. Money moves fast when people smell fraud, Daniel said. Nobody wants to be the last name attached to a sinking ship. Grace called an hour later, her voice tight with the particular energy of someone who hadn't slept. 2 of Richard's largest clients terminated contracts this morning. A third is reviewing the relationship, which is corporate language for already gone. Sophie's follow-up piece drops tomorrow, detailing the shell accounts and Marcus Rain's real financial history. What did Sophie find on him? 2 prior companies, both dissolved under fraud investigations in different states, Grace said. Marcus changed his legal name 4 years ago. Marcus Rain isn't the name he was born with. Does Richard know that yet? Richard's about to, Grace said. And once he does, I doubt he'll be protecting Marcus much longer. By that afternoon, Marcus's office at Hale Enterprises sat empty. Grace told me later that Marcus had cleared out his desk sometime overnight and hadn't answered a single call since. Some said Marcus fled to Europe. Some said Marcus never left the country at all, just disappeared into whatever new identity he'd built for exactly this moment. My phone rang again that evening. Victoria's name lit up the screen for the 20th time in 3 days. This time I answered. Ethan. Victoria's voice cracked around my name, thinner than I'd ever heard it. Please, I need to talk to you. I'm listening, I said, keeping my voice level. You did this, Victoria said. The article, the investigation, all of it. This is because of what you said at the dinner. I said 5 words, Victoria. Everything after that was already true before I ever opened my mouth. My father's company is falling apart, Victoria said, and I could hear something breaking in her voice. Real or performed, I couldn't tell anymore. Clients are leaving. The board is talking about removing him. Do you understand what you've done? I understand what you and Marcus did, I said. For 14 months. Using my company's name to hide it. Silence stretched on the line. Then, quieter, I didn't think it would come back on you. You didn't think about me at all, I said. Not when you call me a charity case in front of 200 people. Not when you let Marcus use my company to launder $4 million. I need your help, Victoria said, and I heard real panic now, not performance. Please. Marcus is gone, Ethan. My father won't even speak to me directly anymore. Everyone's staring at me like I'm the reason his empire is collapsing. Aren't you? I asked. Part of the reason, at least. Victoria didn't answer that. The silence said enough. The next morning, Camille Hale's voice reached me secondhand, through Grace, who'd heard it from a mutual contact, still working inside the family's collapsing circle. You always did have poor judgment, Camille reportedly told Victoria, in the middle of the Hale family's mansion, boxes already being packed around them. First that logistics boy, who couldn't keep up with our world. Now Marcus, who's buried us all. I raised you to choose better than this. Mother, I didn't know Marcus would go this far, Victoria said, according to what Grace relayed to me. You knew enough, Camille said. You always know enough. You just choose not to see it until it's too late. By the end of the week, 3 more clients had severed ties with Hale Enterprises. Richard's name appeared in 2 more articles, each one adding details Sophie had uncovered. Falsified account histories, forged signatures on client agreements, a pattern stretching back further than anyone initially realized. The board scheduled an emergency vote on Richard's position as CEO. Daniel found me watching the news that night, a glass of water untouched on the table beside me. You don't look happy, Daniel said, sitting down across from me. I thought this was the moment you'd been waiting for. I thought so too, I admitted. But watching it actually happen doesn't feel like winning. It just feels like watching something collapse that should have been built better in the first place. That's not weakness, Ethan, Daniel said. That's you being a decent person while everyone around you burns down something rotten. Doesn't mean you have to enjoy the fire to know it needed to happen. My phone buzzed one more time. Victoria, a text this time instead of call. Asterisk, please. I have nowhere else to go. Asterisk. I stared at the message for a long moment, thinking about 3 years of small humiliations, about a folder full of proof, about a woman who once smiled at me across a conference booth like ambition was the most attractive thing in the world. I didn't respond, not out of cruelty. I simply didn't have anything left to give that hadn't already been taken. Daniel watched me set the phone face down on the table. "You okay?" "I will be," I said. The truth's doing exactly what it was always going to do. I don't need to help it along anymore. Outside, the city kept moving, indifferent to the empire quietly falling apart across town, one severed contract at a time. "I need your help," Victoria said again, when I didn't answer the first time. "Ethan, please. Marcus is gone. My father won't even look at me. I have nowhere else to go." I sat with the silence for a moment, letting it stretch. Not out of cruelty, out of honesty. I needed to know what I actually felt before I said anything back. "I'm not going to help you disappear from this, Victoria," I said finally. "But I'm also not going to destroy you. I don't need to. You did that yourself. Are you just going to let everything fall apart? Let my father lose everything he built? Your father built an empire on contracts he never respected the people who earned him," I said. "I'm not responsible for what happens to it now. Neither are you, really. The math did that. The truth did that. Ethan, please." "I have to go," I said, and I meant it gently, not sharply. "Take care of yourself, Victoria." I ended the call before Victoria could say anything else. My hands were steady. That surprised me more than anything. 3 weeks later, I sat across from investigators in a conference room Grace had arranged, a folder of my own records laid out neatly in front of me. "Mr. Cole," the lead investigator said, "walk us through when you first became aware of the irregular transfers." "Grace Bennett, my attorney, brought concerns to me on June 14th, I said. I reviewed the documents that evening. I had no prior knowledge of any transfers routed through my company's registration. "And your relationship to Victoria Hale?" "We were engaged," I said. "The engagement ended the night I learned what had been happening." "Did you have any involvement in structuring these accounts?" "None," I said. "My company provided logistics contracts to Hale Enterprises. Nothing more. I provided every internal record we have to support that." The investigator nodded, writing something down. "Your cooperation has been thorough, Mr. Cole. That will be noted." I told the truth plainly, without exaggeration, and without protecting anyone who didn't deserve protecting. I didn't need to add anything dramatic. The facts were damning enough on their own. Richard Hale's company collapsed within 2 months. The board removed him before regulators even finished their investigation. The mansion, the private jet, the seat on 3 different cherry boards, all of it dissolved into settlements and legal fees. I heard through Grace that Richard had moved into a rental property on the edge of the city, the kind of place he once joked about people like me coming from. Camille Hale's voice, when I heard about it secondhand, hadn't softened at all. "You always did have poor judgment in men," Camille reportedly told Victoria during one of the last conversations anyone overheard between them. "First Ethan, who couldn't keep up with our world. Then Marcus, who nearly buried us. I raised you better than this." Victoria, from what Grace heard, said nothing back. There was nothing left to say. The same woman who once stood up in a ballroom and called me a charity case now had no ballroom, no family fortune, and no one left to perform for. I didn't feel joy hearing about it. I thought I might back when this all started. But standing in the wreckage of what used to be my life, all I felt was quiet. Daniel found me on the back porch of my old office one evening, sky turning orange behind the skyline. "You okay?" Daniel asked, settling into the chair beside mine. "Better than okay," I said. "Grace finished the paperwork today. My company's fully separated, fully cleared. No ties left to any of them." "That's not what I asked." I smiled, small but real. "I'm at peace, Daniel. I thought I'd feel like celebrating when it all came crashing down for them. Instead, I just feel free." "Free's better than celebrating," Daniel said. "Celebrating fades. Free sticks around." Grace joined us a few minutes later, carrying a bottle of something we probably couldn't afford back when I was just Victoria's charity case. "New clients signed this afternoon," Grace said. "Word's spreading that your company held its ground through everything. People respect that." "We built something clean," I said. "Something that doesn't need anyone's family name attached to make it worth something." "To clean," Daniel said, raising his glass. To clean, Grace repeated. I raised mine too, looking out at the city lights beginning to flicker on, thinking about the boy who once drove a rusted van through these same streets at midnight, terrified of never being enough for anyone. That boy had been enough all along. He just needed the right people to see it, and the right storm to clear away everyone who never truly did. To starting over, I said, properly this time. 3 glasses met in the middle of the table, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was finally building something that belonged to me alone.